Okay, if we can figure out whether the Jaguars are good or bad, we could probably figure out the entire AFC playoff race heading into week 12. Calculations come from the Playoff Computer app. Fantasy football playoff crunch time is upon us. Check it out to see what needs to happen for your team to make the playoffs for an entire year. All the good stuff is about the price of one beer. Updating the interconference record, the AFC almost completed its comeback in Week 11, stymied by the Cowboys beating the Raiders, but now they just trail 28-26. That means the likelihood of a 9-win team getting a wild card is not near as good as it was looking a few weeks ago. And there is even one team in the AFC in which the computer says 10 wins isn't safe. For now, the team in the AFC with the highest statistical chance to make the playoffs is now the Denver Broncos, with just the slimmest of a mathematical edge over the Patriots. The Broncos got their biggest win in years with a thriller over the Chiefs for their 8th in a row. Adding to the party was that the Chargers also lost. And for technical sake, we'll say they were helped as well by the Raiders' loss. They are close to being a runaway freight train and almost a shoe-in for the playoffs. In the AFC West, they have a 2-game lead over the Chargers, but the Chargers did beat them earlier, so they will need to maintain that to avoid giving the Chargers a chance to steal the crown in the season finale. Broncos on bye this week, then come back to possibly clinch a spot. Away games against the Commanders and Raiders. They should, in theory, just need one more to be safely in the playoffs. Also at 9-2 and also riding an 8-game win streak are the masters of taking advantage of a light schedule, the New England Patriots. They dispatched the Jets, maintained their game-and-a-half lead over the Bills. With the unblemished division record along with a lot of wins, they are an 8-10 chance to take the AFC and a near certainty to make the playoffs. Likely just needing one more win. And with games against the Bengals and Giants coming up before their bye, probably a good bet. The Colts fell off the top perch while resting, still 8-2, still above 9-10 odds to make the playoffs. Did lose a little bit of ground in the division, and things are going to be a little interesting for them. Like the Broncos and Patriots, not the toughest schedule so far, but now their last 7 games include no teams that currently have a losing record, and they have 4 division games against their closest competitors, so they're likely going to need to keep bringing their A game. The fun starts of a big test against the Chiefs, who will be fighting for their lives at Arrowhead, and the first 2 with the Texans and Jaguars. That will determine whether the AFC South will be a contest or not. The Bills outslugged the Buccaneers. Right now they're an 82% chance to make the playoffs. They do have a lot of conference games yet to play, including the next 2 against teams that are fighting for spots as well. A win against the Texans would knock a potential competitor for a wildcard spot back down a few rungs. As with many, 10 wins is the target. And let's see, that means 3 more are needed. And they have games against the Bengals, Browns, and Jets coming up later on. Okay, the Chargers were completely slaughtered by the Jaguars, which not only puts them down 2 behind the Broncos in the AFC West, but that gives them a head-to-head loss to a team they very well might find themselves tied with for a wild card spot. They go on their bye with 3 out of 4 chances to make the playoffs. Do get the Raiders at home when they return, but that is the end of anything resembling an easy win for the rest of the season. So mark the Chargers down as being one team with a target on their back, particularly for the Chiefs to try to overtake. The Steelers didn't listen to all that talk about how the Ravens were going to overtake them for the AFC North, at least in Week 11, as they handily beat the Bengals to stay in front of the Ravens for the division. That also effectively shut the door on a possible competitor for a spot, and while 6-4 isn't quite safe, it's better than the alternative. They still have 2 games with the Ravens to probably decide the division. Barring that, they would have their work cut out to get to 9 or 10 wins. They take on the Bears this week in Chicago. The win would really give them some breathing room, while of course a loss could open the door for an unraveling with the Bills to follow, and then part 1 of the Ravens saga. Just about 7 in 10 chances to make the playoffs as I talk. Winner of the team that was most able to put a soul-crushing loss behind them is the Jacksonville Jaguars, obliterating the Chargers to return to 2 games above 500. So if they are actually semi-good this year, then some other teams are in trouble. The Chargers, as we mentioned, and then also the Chiefs, as the Jaguars now own the tiebreaker advantage over the both of them. And while the division-leading Colts have a brutal finishing schedule, the same cannot be said for the Jaguars. Other than the 2 games against the Colts and 1 against the Broncos, Cardinals, Titans, Jets, and Titans again. So that's 4 winnable games, which should be good enough for a spot, with a decent chance if they were to somehow only get to 9 wins. The Jaguars very well could decide the fate of how this goes down in the AFC. The Ravens return to 500 after their 4th in a row, taking care of the Browns. Still a game back of the Steelers. Still have the 2 games with them that likely decides the division. Still going to be pretty tough to make the playoffs if they don't win the division. But after the 1-5 start, they have done everything they needed to do to return to about the same mathematical odds that they and everybody had at the start of the season. Host the rotating quarterback carousel of the Jets this week. Bengals next. So no reason they don't continue to improve their odds and put pressure on the Steelers and maybe the Chargers and Jaguars as well. The Texans also returned to 500. They don't have quite the same odds as the Ravens since they are far out of the division race, so they're likely pinning their chances on a wild card spot, and that is going to require overtaking a few teams, with the Chiefs and Ravens also trying to overcome some of the same teams. The Texans stand at about 4-10 odds. They do have a good division record so far, which could come into play were they to tie the Jaguars. Still have the 2 games with the Colts, so a chance to set them in their sights as well. But that also means 2 games against a tough opponent, and they add to that games with the Bills this week, the Chiefs in a few, and the Chargers as well. So interesting or tough, they're going to have to find some upsets in there. Coming in at number 10 is the team I would not have expected to say coming in at number 10. They might very well be a playoff caliber team. They very well might have in reality better than the 1-4 mathematical chances the computer spits out. But that is why we go through this exercise. You just never know what's going to happen. And what has happened is that the Chiefs are 5-5, have potentially crucial head-to-head losses against the Jaguars and Bills, have a terrible conference record, not a pretty division record. And the computer says they might need to get to 11 wins to be in. With the loss to the Broncos and the Chargers a couple games above them as well, AFC West title hopes are down to 3%. But as we all know, it's Patrick frickin' Mahomes. They have games remaining against the Titans and Raiders, 2 as sure as one could be sure victories. 1 against Dallas, you probably like their chances there. Another against the Texans, ditto. So 9 wins seems pretty easy to write a story for before mentioning the games against the Colts this week and rematches against the Chargers and Broncos. A win against the Colts would certainly put them right in the storyline. A loss would sink their playoff odds to 16% before taking into consideration any other game this week. Bengals with the loss to the Steelers fall to 3-7. Not in must-win territory technically, but certainly any more losses just about slam the door on their foot. Just 7% to play in the postseason. I wonder who they possibly think they can overtake. I think it's time to let Burrow heal and try again next year. Patriots at home this week. Good luck. For giggles, a win and a Steelers loss would at least keep them with a dream of fool's gold. The Dolphins continue to stay alive. Winners of now 2 in a row, but with practically zero chance to win the division, they are looking at needing to win out to take a wild card spot. Have their bye this week. Then Saints and Jets. 6 and 7 could be in their future, but not that that helps out much at this point. The Jets at 2 and 8 are all but done for, but the computer says that if they somehow miracle 7 wins in a row, they would have a halfway decent chance for a playoff spot at 9 wins. The Raiders, however, also at 2 and 8, and the computer says they are realistically out. And ditto that for the Browns. And the Titans at 1 and 9 are realistically out of the playoff race and are technically eliminated from the AFC South Division Champion contest. That is it for now. Check out the Playoff Computer app. Enjoy your day.